riding along the Normandy countryside. Beautiful day, sun is out. I feel like we're on a bit of a plain, very flat. But yeah, a beautiful day to be a cycle tourist. Welcome back to part 2 of our journey cycle touring from Dublin to the French Pyrenees. After arriving in St Mary-Glees and setting up camp for the night, we both were really pleased to say that we enjoyed a really good night's sleep. We awoke to blue sunny skies and were excited for what the day would bring. St Mary-Glees is perfectly positioned in the Normandy coastline and really in great proximity to so many of the D-Day landing sites that we'd wanted to see. We took great pleasure in unloading a lot of our gear off our bikes and had a big day planned to witness a few memorials for ourselves. We'd never visited Normandy before, so we didn't know what to expect. We saw a landscape dominated by huge farm manors. There was lush green countryside everywhere we looked. We were really excited to see what the next few days of cycling in this area would bring. First impressions were definitely good ones.
Bonjour! Bonjour mouton! Bonjour agneau! Ça va? Ça va bien?
During our ride, we decided to take advantage of some of the marked out cycle routes you'll find in Normandy. You'll see signposts for these everywhere. The routes were great. They are a variety of different road surfaces. Sometimes you're on hot mix asphalt, other times you're on double track gravel or single track even. We were okay with the gravel bikes taking on any of these road surfaces, but just be mindful if you want to take advantage of these routes yourself, what sort of bike you might need.
After a beautiful ride through the Normandy countryside, we arrived at the American cemetery. We parked the bikes out the front and locked them up and headed down into the cemetery itself. The cemetery is located just behind Omaha Beach in the town of Colville-sur-Mer, and you can see the stunning views out across the ocean while thinking about the events that took place there back in 1944. All in all, we spent about 45 minutes at the cemetery wandering around the grounds and the various memorials that are located there. Simply walking through all the white crosses, which I had seen on TV shows and movies so many times before, was a surreal experience. As far as the eye can see, you can see the crosses stretching out in perfect alignment whichever way you look. Definitely an experience I won't forget, and one I would highly recommend to anyone with any interest in World War II and the D-Day landings, or even if you don't, it's well worth the visit. After we left the cemetery, we made the short ride down to Omaha Beach itself. We didn't have a lot of time to spend here. The day was getting on and we still had at least a 50-kilometre ride back to the campsite. But it gave us time to get a taste of the beach and have a look at a couple of the sites and memorials that were there before we hit the road again, back towards St Mary-Glees.
As we headed on our way, I have to admit there were times where I was wondering if I was still riding in Ireland. We were on tiny country lane roads with hedgerows either side. It was very green and very reminiscent of the Emerald Isle itself. We were also pretty hungry. We'd had that spare potato for breakfast, but other than that, it was slim pickings. The boulangeries were also still closed. So we made do with a lunch of champions, a Snickers bar, and an Orangina, my very first for the trip. You'll soon learn I love these. After a busy day of sightseeing and 115 kilometres ridden, the first day in Normandy came to an end.
On the road to Utah Beach this morning, which will be interesting to see. Already past the monument you've seen the series Band of Brothers, it was the original commanding officer of Band of Brothers, Thomas Meehan, who went down in a C-47, and the monument we've just passed, so that was interesting to see.
We actually planned the route for day 2 to specifically take in a number of monuments dedicated to the Men of Easy Company, which the series Band of Brothers was all about. This monument here was to Major Dick Winters, one of the main characters in the show. We felt so lucky to have such great weather as well for 2 days in a row. We had blue skies and sunshine. And as we pedalled our way along the coastline past various monuments, we were just blown away continually by Normandy itself. Beautiful, quiet roads, country lanes, and monuments that you just didn't expect to see popping out left, right and centre. Different way to take the boat to the sea, the beach, by tractor. It's not something you see every day back home. But yeah, an interesting time. Bonjour! Bonjour! Bonne chance! So we've passed a few tractors taking the boats to the sea, which is quite interesting. Anyway, wishing them well for their fishing trip.
After another beautiful cycle through the Normandy countryside, we arrived at Utah Beach. Being there much earlier in the day meant there was no crowds, and it gave us time to explore some of the old German bunkers and memorials around the place. We spent a good bit of time having a look inside some of the bunkers, as well as flying the drone and getting an aerial view of the beach, which was just amazing. With the tide fully out, you really got a sense of what it must have been like back in 1944, running across these beaches and into the fields beyond. The drone gave us a great bird's eye view of the beach in either direction, and you could see it stretching for miles and miles on end. The morning light was absolutely stunning as well. As a keen history buff of D-Day, I couldn't help but think what it must have been like for the soldiers as they arrived on the beach back in 1944. All in all, we probably spent a couple of hours exploring this part of the coast. We really enjoyed the time here, and it gave us a much better sense of the history of the place. Unlike Omaha Beach the day before, which had been just like any other normal summer holiday beach full of crowds, and this one was more isolated, didn't have the crowds, and I think also being low tide meant you got a real sense of the beach, where Omaha Beach the day before, the tide had been up and there was hardly any beach at all. We've definitely vowed to return to this part of France. We loved it, and we only saw a small percentage of what's really on offer, so we're looking forward to planning another trip back at some stage and going and seeing some of the museums and other things that we didn't get a chance to see this time.
We spent the next part of the ride really just reflecting on what we'd taken in to date. Again, the scenery in Normandy continued to remind me personally of Ireland, and I think it was just those small country roads and hemmed in sort of hedgeways and hedgerows with that green lushness all around. But then of course you've got those big, massive farm complexes as well. I can't think of a better way to describe them. Are they manors? Are they a co-op? I'm not sure. I've never seen, you know, huge stone buildings of the like. But to me now, when I reflect back on Normandy, these buildings are just quintessential and go hand in hand with the area. They're beautiful. French traffic jam. I love it. This may be a good time to warn you that I am a real cow lover, so expect to see more cows along our trip. With the riding over, we spent the rest of the day walking around St Miraglise and admiring this beautiful town. There are so many World War II monuments within the town itself to take in. Being the first French town to be liberated during World War II is a big deal, and the way that they have honoured the servicemen who fought to liberate the town in this way, we really thought was just amazing. We really loved our time in St Miraglise and would thoroughly recommend you come here if you plan a trip to Normandy, just to see it for yourself.
Well, I'm whispering because it's early in the morning. It's actually not that early. It's like 20 to 8, but everyone in the campground is asleep. And we've been making lots of nice packing up tent rustling noises. Anyway, we've got a pretty big day ahead of us, just under 120 kilometres to get to Mont Saint-Michel. So from St Miraglise to Mont Saint-Michel. Woo! On y va! Let's go.
And so ends part 2 of our cycle tour from Dublin all the way to the French Ariège Pyrenees. If you like what you've seen so far, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe if you'd like to see how we get on from Normandy to Mont Saint-Michel in part 3.
They're baby goats.
Mm-hmm.